Okay, you're all set.
Good evening. This is the regular meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals for the Town of Newcastle. Today is May 26, 2021. Secretary?
First issue tonight is Sunshine Children's Home is looking for an extension to their variance request. Is somebody from Sunshine here?
Good evening. My name's Annie Klein. I'm an associate at Dalbello, Dunell, Weingarten, Wise & Whitaker here tonight on behalf of Sunshine. So we've requested an additional extension for 18 months. Construction is well underway and continues to be ongoing. So unfortunately, we're not finished yet, but it's well on its way. So we are requesting another 18 months.
Could you just help us understand what stage you're at in the construction?
Yeah, so we so there's about a year left, but we have done all of the site work is basically done. So it's, the building is underway, the structure's up, and the site work's complete, but it's just, been slightly delayed due to COVID the last year. So we're just, just ongoing.
And so 18 months, you feel is a comfortable period in which to finish the work?
Yes, we fully anticipate being done before then, but that is, that's a safe estimate.
Tom, is the building department okay with that?
Yes, I am, sir.
Good.
Any other comment by the board?
No, I'm okay with it. Fine.
I'd make a motion that we extend the conclusion date for the Sunshine Children's Home and Rehabilitation Center for 18 months.
I'll second that motion.
Chairman Kenneth Cooper,
In favor?
Anthony Giardino,
Aye.
Harvey Bonaparte,
Aye.
Howard Dubs,
Aye.
Michael Nolan.
Aye.
Just to clarify for the secretary, based on the Dalbello Dunellan's letter of March 31st, the approval, they said expired, I guess, May 16th, 2021, based on the last extension. So it would run for 8 months from that date, from the May 16th, 2021 date.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you all very much. Have a great evening.
You too. Thank you.
Richard and Catherine Ma.
Hi, I'm representing Rich and Catherine Ma, Mary Scott. We're here to ask for a front yard variance. Okay to share my screen?
Yes, please.
Okay. 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 So can you see?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So we have, let me just actually show you a plan first. So we have an existing project that has a building permit that did not require a variance to move walls around, renovate inside the Ma residence, and put a new front porch on. Everything met zoning there. The issue was there was a room that we turned into a mudroom and added a side entry. And so this basically platform and stairs with a roof over it is what requires a zoning variance. So let me show you. Okay, so here, a little bigger. So Valley Lane comes down here and then kind of whips around this way. Worthen goes off this way up to Hardscrabble. So this is the Ma house. It has a very deep front yard here, a very small front yard here and has front 3/4 of the house basically, or half anyway. So our porch, which is here, is what requires the variance. This porch is fine. So what we are requesting is a front yard variance to go from 60 feet to 44 feet, which is a 16-foot setback variance for this side entry porch.
Mary, it looks like this is really in the side yard, the porch. And I assume that it's a front yard variance you need because it's got 2 front yards.
Well, it's like a continuous. So as you see, Valley Lane goes all the way around.
So it's the particular nature of the property that's requiring this. If it were just a side yard variance that, or it was just a side yard setback that was required, would you have complied with it?
Yes, we would. So side yard in 1 acre zoning is 35 feet and we're at 45.
Yeah, so
Or 44.
it looks like this is a no-brainer.
Any questions? I'm kind of done.
I think that says it all.
I think you're right.
Harry, is there anyone who wishes to speak to this application in the queue?
Hopefully this will work.
Harry?
There's no hands raised right now. If anybody's interested in speaking, just raise your digital hand.
Hudson,
Is that a digital hand I heard?
I don't think so, because
You
they
don't
can't.
usually hear digital hands.
If anyone's having trouble, you can also type in the chat box. And actually, let me just check YouTube because they can look on that as well. And there's nobody there either.
Okay, make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Second,
Chairman Kenneth Cooper,
In favor?
Anthony Giardina,
aye.
Harvey Bonaparte,
Aye.
Howard Dubs,
Aye.
Michael Nolan.
Aye. I'll make a motion. I move that the board approve the application for a side yard variance of 16 feet for the construction of a platform deck and stair for the following reasons. The site is made more complicated because there are 2 front yards. There will be no undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood. The benefit cannot be sought through other means. The requested variance is not substantial. There will be no adverse impact on the physical environment. And the alleged difficulty is not self-created. It will have 6 months to start, 1 year to complete. We'll need a foundation survey prior to framing.
I'll second.
Chairman Kenneth Cooper,
In favor?
Anthony Giardina,
Aye.
Harvey Bonaparte,
Aye.
Howard Dubs,
Aye.
Michael Nolan.
Aye. Thank you. You have your variance.
Thank you very much.
You're
You
welcome.
can sort of screen back, Mary.
Okay. Stop in the share.
Subrahmanen? Did I get that name pronounced correctly? Maybe I said it wrong. Subramanian.
Sounds good to me.
I need all the help I can get. Are they with us tonight?
Harry, can you see if the next applicant?
Now and then, like I said.
Oh, hold on one second, Bob. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Carrie. Can you tell if the next applicant,
We do have, what's the last name on it?
it's SUB.
Hey.
Stanislas,
Oh, I think they're sending a chat.
Okay, I see somebody has their hand raised. Hold on one moment. I'm going to promote them to a panelist. They should just unmute yourself and you should be able to speak. And let me know if there's anyone else that is in as an attendee that should be part of your application.
Hello, how are you? Yes, the representative from the pool company should also
Hi.
be.
Chris Olson from Wagner should be here. Oh, let me call him right now. He's the one who told us about the meeting.
Hold on one moment. We have him. He's on an attendee. I'm just going to promote him.
Right.
Hi.
Okay, he should be on now. Chris, you just need to unmute yourself.
There's Chris.
Great.
Chris Olson.
You're
Yeah,
on mute.
Chris, you just need to unmute yourself.
Hello.
Mr. Olson, do you want to speak to this application and explain it to us, please?
Hey, I'm sorry. So I'm a little late here. Okay, should I share screen so we can look at my plans?
Yes,
yes.
please.
Everybody can see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right, so our zoning board application tonight is to get a variance for additional coverage. We are proposing to take out an existing underground pool that was built in 1977. It's actually a pretty cool thing if any of you have seen it. The existing property is actually exceeds allowable lot coverage because of the tennis court, the house, the driveway, and that was the house and the driveway and the tennis court and the pool were all built in the late 70s, early 80s. So what we are proposing is to take out the underground pool, which is in pretty good shape, and replace it with a standard and more typical above ground rectangle pool in the same location. So our application really tonight is for two things. It's for basically a blessing on the coverage situation, which includes the overages from back in the day, and then also an additional 891 square feet for the above ground or in-ground pool. In the Newcastle zoning codes, there's really nothing in there about an underground pool per se. So the underground pool, as of right now, does not actually count towards lot coverage, even though it is there. So it's there, but it's not there. So the above ground pool, we're actually adding in coverage for that, which is increasing the amount of coverage on the property. So open this up to the board if you have any questions or like to discuss.
Are you using the tennis courts?
Yes, we are.
Yes, every day, except the winter.
What is an underground pool?
Chris, you have pictures, yeah.
Chris has pictures.
You guys see that?
No.
You might have to stop that screen share and then click on the new image you want to show.
It was a big deal when it was built at the time.
Oh, wow.
You see that? So this is actually, you should have provided us the plans. So I actually have some old plans to share with you as well, but this is a big concrete slab And on top of that is this fiberglass structure, which now has like lots of leaks and lots of issues structurally because it's 40 something years old. From the surface, when you're in the backyard, this is what you see. You see the 3 skylights sticking up out of the ground, and you see some rocks and stuff. It's really,
Wow.
you don't even really know that there's a pool there per se.
Yeah.
What is the size of the existing pool and how does it compare to the new pool?
Okay, this is another angle. This little structure is going to be demolished because this is how you get from the house down into the underground pool structure. So this little structure goes away and then the pool with the skylights goes away. I will switch back to the site plan now. Okay, on the site plan, you can see the difference between the two. So in pink there is the outline of the underground pool structure. And the 3 squares represent the 3 skylights that you can see from the surface. So the above ground pool is slightly bigger in size and coverage than the existing pool. When it comes time to take the existing pool out, we might actually end up modifying the dimensions of the new pool to accommodate the hole, the excavation that we're going to be working with. So the pool might become a little thinner or longer or something like that in the end. But
And your design includes an apron around the pool, and is there pool equipment that is different than what's there today?
We are not proposing doing a patio around the pool. We're going to just do standard coping and then grass back there as best possible because we're trying to stay under the 1,000-foot threshold for a new drainage system. This lot presents some problems with having a new drainage system because there's lots of ledge rock on the surface and there's really not too many locations where we can actually put some sort of underground drainage system. We do need a small filter equipment pad. It's located back here. It's right now this is just kind of woods and landscaping.
Where is the pool equipment today?
I believe it's stored in the little wood structure coming off the back of the house.
Yes.
Yes, it's in the hut.
Yeah.
Mhm. It's unusual.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like it. It's definitely one of a kind.
Where are the closest neighbors?
Okay.
There, I guess, if you go further to the left, to the right, sorry, to the right, you would see.
I think the neighbor who has the biggest sight line is 6 Aspen. And then, because it drops off like a big hill, we're on a big hill, so that the neighbor to the right doesn't see anything. We're on a cul-de-sac as well.
And doesn't see anything because you're at an elevation above
Correct,
his property.
correct. We're high up there.
And we have a lot of trees around the
Yeah,
property.
we have a lot
also.
of trees, yeah.
Here's a Google Earth image.
You can
Heavily
see,
wooded. So you can just barely see the corner of their tennis court here. And from the Google Earth image, you can barely see the neighbors' houses, We'll take off the satellite so you can see the adjacent neighbors.
How much development coverage is taken up by the driveway?
Just a second. I will pull up the coverage form. Okay,
About 600.
the existing driveway is 5,600 square feet of asphalt. Going from the road up to the house level is quite a steep hill.
Right.
I And then when you get up to the top of the hill, it's actually pretty tight in terms of a couple of parking spots and the ability to turn a car around.
When was the house constructed?
1976.
What was the development coverage requirement at that time?
That I don't know, but everything was permitted and zoned and done, you know.
You got your CO then, so
Oh,
I assume
absolutely.
that, yeah, I assume that you met at the development coverage at that time, if there
Absolutely.
was one. Tom, do you know anything about that?
I do not have the numbers for that time frame.
I actually have extensive records of all the letters from the town and the Board of Health and everything. You know.
Well, it sounds like your requirements stem from the driveway, you know, is taking up a lot of your development coverage. But the way you've described the property, it sounds like you really need that driveway to be exactly what it is, and that it was done at a time that it was totally in compliance. And maybe they upped the development coverage subsequently. We don't know. Tom, you don't have any idea?
It was prior to 95 when the current regulations came in. So all the entities do have certificate of occupancies. So at that time they were permitted.
So it was permitted. They really have somewhat of a non-conforming, a legal non-conforming on the driveway.
Yes, sir.
We did discuss, you know, possibly removing some of the asphalt, and it's just really undesirable given the way the site is set up, being up on top of the hill. I mean, that would really make it awkward doing any of that in gravel or something like that.
Why is there a jet out on the driveway where it says asphalt?
It just came that way.
Is it necessary, that jet out?
Well, it's kind of tight. If you see that it's kind of a tight turn, yeah, we use it all the time. When trucks come in and things, for when they do the septic or, you know, the oil deliveries.
They don't turn around near the house?
No, there's not enough room. We turn around that little jut out and back in. I mean, you know, it depends on the size of the truck.
Yeah, from Editash Street going all the way up, this is a pretty steep hill. And then even this jut out here that we're talking about is still in the hill, and it doesn't really get flat until you get over here to where the steps are.
Harry, there's Mr. Poster who wishes to speak to this subject.
Mr. Poster, just unmute yourself.
Hi, James Poster. How are you?
We're fine.
Great. First of all, I have no objection to their pool at all. I know they're kids. I hope they do have a great time with the pool. The only thing I'm very concerned with, and I spoke to Bob already about this, is just the runoff. I'm just concerned with runoff because, as they said, their house is high, so to speak, on a hill. My house is below it. So I just hope that the pool company and the town can make sure that the runoff does not run into my property and cause any kind of damage. Once again, I have no objection to their pool.
Town engineer will review the application before the official go-ahead is given.
Thank you.
So you can be assured that that will have been reviewed.
Great. Good luck to the superintendent.
Thank you.
Bob Cioli has reviewed this application. Actually, we did it twice. We had some patio area included. And then after doing a little research about installing some sort of a drainage system, the patio was actually removed. The area where the pool is proposed is actually a pretty tight pocket. Like, I don't really think there's any way for runoff from this pool spot to actually get to one of the neighbors. You'd have to go across the tennis court, or there's actually some ledge rock sticking up to the south side of this image, in the east side, and here. So even if we did create some runoff in this space, I don't think it could actually get to one of the adjacent properties.
Carrie, do you show anyone else who wishes to speak to this application?
I do not see anyone else right now.
Okay. Board, are there any other questions for the applicant?
I'm good with it.
We did receive a letter of support from a different neighbor, Mr. Stephen Kemmler. And he thought that it was okay to go ahead and replace the cool legacy underground pool.
Thank you. I make a motion, we close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Chairman Kenneth Cooper,
Favor?
Anthony Giardina,
Aye.
Harvey Bonaparte,
Aye.
Howard Dubs,
Aye.
Michael Nolan.
Aye.
Who'd like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that the application, the Stanislaus application to remove an existing underground pool and replace it with a more modern above ground pool be approved for the following reasons. The development coverage requirements in this particular site are 13,099 square feet are allowed. The applicant wants to go to a development coverage of 16,427. The development coverage on the property is problematical because of the extensive driveway required to reach the house from the road. It's just unique in the shape of the property and the height of the terrain there, and the rock ledges create many problems that have to be allowed for this particular application. If we grant the application, there will be no undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood. There was no other method except granting the application to achieve the benefit sought by the applicant. In this particular instance, it's not a substantial request. There'll be no adverse effect on the physical environment or conditions of the neighborhood. This is really not a self-created hardship in that they already have a pool there. They just want to put a new pool in. And the existing pool was already over in the development coverage, so we're not really looking for a severe differential there. This pool, I'm assuming, is going to be a gunite pool.
Yes, sir.
It is. So with a gunite pool, what we really always request is that there be a survey of the pool framing and the reinforcing bars before the gunite is shot to be sure that the pool is in the correct location. So we're going to require that in this variance request. And you'll have 6 months to start, 1 year to finish. And we'll need final surveys also when the pool is completed.
I'll second.
Chairman Kenneth Cooper,
In favor?
Anthony Giardina,
Aye.
Harvey Bonaparte,
Aye.
Howard Dubs,
Aye.
Michael Nolan.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. You have your variance.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a nice night. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bronstein is next.
Is there someone here to speak on the Bronstein application?
Hi there, I'm Anthony D'Amico from D'Amico Electric, here to represent Mr. Bronstein. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Oh, great, thank you.
Please tell us what you're applying for.
I'm sorry?
Please tell us what you're applying for.
Okay, we're applying for a variance for a generator. It's a rear yard setback variance for approximately 5 feet. The generator is existing, and it's a little, as you know, a little too close to the rear yard property line.
Excuse me, Mr. D'Amico, excuse me, I don't want to jump on you, but my paperwork shows that you're looking for a side yard variance.
That is true.
What are we doing, rear or side here?
I apologize. You are correct. It's a little
That's
deceiving.
7-foot side yard. 7-foot
Um,
side yard, correct?
Yes,
Okay,
Not 5.
no,
I'm sorry. I had a problem hearing you there.
So it's a 7-yard variance, not a 5-yard variance.
Yes,
7 foot.
7 feet.
that's correct.
7 feet, yeah. Can you tell us the circumstances necessitating the variance?
Sure. So the generator right now is too close to the side yard property line, and there's currently a pool that was put in for a variance, and the property line. What happens is there's just no other real place to put the generator. Because of where the electric meter is, the gas meter, and the septic.
So the generator hasn't been installed yet, is that correct?
It actually is installed already. It was previously installed without the proper permit.
Is that by your firm?
Yes,
And you're
actually, what
pleading
really wasn't.
ignorance?
I'm sorry.
Are you pleading ignorance?
I wasn't really the firm heading up the existing building permit that it went along with. There was another firm involved that I was working for as a subcontractor.
Was there a building permit for the initial generator installation?
No, sir.
So there was no building permit when
There was a building permit for another renovation there, but not for the generator itself.
So tell us, go ahead, Harvey.
And as of right now, it's literally like 5 feet away from where it needs to be.
More than 5 feet. Yeah.
Seven.
Can I speak?
Sure.
Hi. So I'm the homeowner. The generator was installed by my contractor in 2012. I didn't inquire of him about whether he was getting permits or not. I assumed he was doing what he needed to do. He had previously done work for me. And the generator was installed in actually a quite logical place if you looked at where it was. The distance from the side.
Why is that a logical place? Explain to us.
Okay. So first of all, I'm sorry that I don't have the plan to share with you, but my side yard boundary is about, let me put it another way. Behind my house, there is some land that the Bowetti brothers in the early 70s deeded to the town. And for the town to take this land, they needed to have access to the street. So there's a 20 or 30 foot corridor between this land that's behind my house and my neighbor's house that runs behind our house to the street. So when the end of my house is really 35 feet from the end of that corridor, it's really 50 feet from any neighbor. And where this generator is, it's closest to the Sawmill River Parkway Authority and town land. There are no homes on the side of my house where the generator is. So the generator is about 8 feet. My house is 35 feet or 36 feet from the end of the corridor, and the generator is 8 feet inside, 8 feet closer to the side yard than the end of my house. And the reason it's there is you have to move it. Once you move it away from the house and away from a couple of big trees, which I think is required, that's sort of a logical place. And it happens to be 8 feet closer to the property line, or I guess it's 7 feet because it's closer to the property line than is allowed. But the property that's there is not used by anybody. It's not a homeowner. It's this corridor that the town owns to have access to its land.
Where is your electric box located?
It is about 15 feet from where the generator is located. It's between 10 and 15 feet.
It's very close then. It's,
Yes, yes.
It makes
Yeah,
sense.
Yes,
All right. And how is your generator powered?
natural gas
Natural gas from tanks?
from Con Ed.
Con Ed. So you have a line that's running into the generator right now?
Yes,
So if it had to be moved, it would be very expensive to change that line, right?
yes.
It's also right next to the gas meter, so it would be
Yeah,
a financial hardship to repipe the
Right.
gas and the electric.
right.
Right.
The
You have
gas meter
proper-
and the electrical box are both on the side of my house, about 10 or between 10 and 15 feet from where the generator is.
So location-wise, it makes sense.
Yes.
In the,
And I think if you came and looked at it as where it is and looked at the side yard, you'd see there are no homes. There's nobody who's anywhere near where the generator is. I think Tom has probably been to the house and seen it.
That is correct.
so what's happening with the generator now? Why is it that after this intervening period, you're before the board now?
Because I learned it was installed in 2012, about 6 or 7 months ago. I contacted someone to do some servicing work on the generator, and before they would touch the generator, they asked me for some information, including the building permit number. I contacted my contractor, assuming he would be able to give me the building permit number because I didn't have it, and he said, "Oops." So I then, after had some unpleasant conversations with him, he's now footing the bill for getting this all straightened out because I don't want to have an illegal generator on my property.
Okay.
Understood. Carrie, is there anyone in the queue to speak to this application?
I don't see anyone currently. If you're interested in speaking, just raise your digital hand or type in the chat box.
Does any member of the board have any other comments? I make a motion, we close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Chairman Kenneth Cooper,
In favor?
Anthony Giardina,
Aye.
Harvey Bonaparte,
Aye.
Howard Dubs,
Aye.
Michael Nolan.
Aye. Who'd like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the application made by 20 Mount Peak Road, Bronstein. For a side yard variance of 7 feet for the location of a generator, which was previously installed by a previous contractor unbeknownst to the property owner without a permit. The owner has demonstrated that this is the logical place for the generator to be located. No one has indicated that they have any objection to the location. No neighbors have made any mention of an objection. The requested variance will not create an undesirable change or character to the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties. No other method is available to the applicant which is likely to achieve the benefit that is being sought. The variance is not substantial. The proposed variance will not have any adverse effect on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. The difficulty, although self-created, was something that could not be avoided because the property owner wasn't aware of it. The benefit of to the applicant of the variance will be greater than any detriment to health, safety, or neighborhood. For these reasons, I move that we approve the application. Do you need anything, Tom?
No, sir, I'm good.
Okay. And it's installed already, so you have no further work to perform, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
Chairman Kenneth Cooper,
Favor?
Anthony Giardina,
Aye.
Harvey Bonaparte,
Aye.
Howard Dubs,
Aye.
Michael Nolan.
Aye. Thank you. Have your variance.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
You're welcome.
Next is Pappas.
I'm also Anthony D'Amico from D'Amico Electric here to represent the Pappas residents.
Is there a discount when you install 2 generators?
This one's not in yet.
Oh, okay.
So let's see. So we're looking to get a side yard variance for this generator. Basically, there's no choices as far as where to put the generator to not get a side yard variance. And with where the septic is, underground propane tank, and trying to coordinate all those things into one area, that's where we looking for the side yard variance, because we can't get it far enough from the property line. But it is as close to the house as we can get it, based on staying away from windows for building codes purposes.
We have a letter from one of the neighbors objecting to the location and wants to know why it can't be placed behind the house instead of next on the side of the house. Can you answer that? Yeah, are you aware of that letter, number one? And can you answer the concerns?
Well, now I am aware of that letter, and so as far as the rear of the house, we have a challenge with usable space back there. Distance from the windows. So
I don't understand that. What do you mean usable space?
well, in other words, to put it in the backyard, basically it ruins the backyard.
Oh, that's a different story. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is the homeowner, Chris Pappas. If I could just clarify one thing. Certainly the request, as is in your paperwork here, is that we are in what I understand to be a non-conforming lot in a half-acre zoning area. I think our property measures out at 0.29 acre. And so the footprint of the house itself is what it is. And there's mostly septic field in the backyard. The opposite side is also very tight. In fact, that measures out, I think, at 14 to 14 and a half feet to the property line on the west side. The east side of the property where we're looking to request the variance seemed to be the only logical place that then would allow me not to have to bury the propane tank in that backyard area, where then I would begin to get close to, if not right on top of, not only my septic fields, but I had a drainage survey run for other purposes deep in the backyard. And I remembered from that drainage study that I have 2 PVC pipes carrying liter water flow from the roof line right through that backyard area, which would have been one of the alternate places to bury the propane tank. And of course, that dictates, of course, due to the 10 feet rules, et cetera, where in fact the generator could be placed. So as Anthony correctly pointed out, that side area there where we're requesting the variance seemed to be the only logical location to place the generator, allowing me to, and it's also just occupied by woods further out there. Mr. Bernstein's home is the property to the east there, and there is no home there. It's further to the south and east of my physical house. And so there are no direct neighbor concerns in terms of structures.
What about Miller at 12 Mid Place?
Right, that's our neighbor Ellen Miller, and last week she did get in touch with us, and we had an on-site meeting at the property. And she ended up, after very brief explanations as to what, why, where, and when we wanted this location, she fully understood. She recognizes the dimensions of the property are very limited compared to virtually everyone else in that neighborhood. And this was my only chance to perhaps get a
And
generator.
as we talked with Ellen, and she's welcome, we've been neighbors for 26 years. We will screen whatever needs to be screened. We will put a fence. We welcome her input. We explain exactly how we would screen it off with a bunch of trees. She won't even see it.
Yeah.
She is way across the street. She's not next to us. She's not behind us. And she seemed fine with it. She was here last Thursday as we were here at 9 o'clock at night.
In the darkness,
She
but she came
saw it,
before that. Yeah.
and she left here telling me she's fine with it. I'm not sure when the letter came, but as far as I know, she was fine.
The neighbor that was objecting indicated that it was located close to her bedroom.
Yeah.
She's across the street. She's not,
Yeah.
I mean, from her bedroom window, it's not close to her. I mean, her generator's as close to my bedroom as our generator is to her bedroom. She lives across the street. She's got a tremendous front lawn. We have a big front lawn. When she looks out her bedroom window to the side of our house, to the extent she sees the generator, we're absolutely fine with screening it off with trees. So
Which I think
we have half-acre zoning. She's far away across the street from us.
Right, we would have certainly considered, under no uncertain terms, shielding the physical presence of this generator from mid-place, which is to the north of the property, from any traffic or Ellen's property as well. We just would have done that by matter of course, as
We would have put it in
we
trees without her.
wouldn't have wanted that visible anyway to our neighborhood.
Definitely could be screened.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's easy to screen. Our street has 4 houses. It's a small little street. We're the only house on our side of the street. We're more than happy to put up whatever bushes she requires.
How do we include all these screening proposals that the applicant is making in the work they're asking to be done? How do we get that done?
They would provide a plan for the board to approve,
Okay.
or the board could specify a number of bushes that need to be placed at this time.
That's fine.
So we can put that in the approval.
If you have a specific location and a number of bushes, that would be, the more specific the board can be, the better. If the board wants the applicant to come back with a plan and approve the plan at the next meeting, that's the other alternative. So,
I mean, if it was at all possible, I would think that it would, if we could propose something or include something in this variance to, as you know, the time to get the things passed. Is there something that we could potentially, use something that could get approved with this variance at this time?
And 1 or 2 large evergreens would block the view. It's not a big.
Yeah, and you look at the side of it too, it's a 20 kW, so you're only talking about a 30-inch wide from mid-place. It would be,
Right.
It's parallel with the house, so it's really not very visible, especially a couple of evergreen type trees. You'll never see it.
That's the north side facing mid-place, is what you're stating.
Absolutely.
That's correct. Tom.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So 2 evergreens on the north side would shield the narrow part of the generator.
Absolutely. If you want to make them 8 feet, 10 feet, 2 big evergreens is more than enough to screen it.
I'm not so sure we need to specify any screening. The neighbor didn't say anything about screening. She's only concerned about the noise.
Well, again,
but-
if she has a generator, her back neighbor has a generator. A lot of people in Chapel have generators. When ours goes on, hers goes on. It's not like she's going to hear ours and not hers.
No, that's what I'm driving at. What I'm driving at is that we don't need to go into a big rigmarole about providing and making you put screening in that you're going to be responsible for in perpetuity. When if she is happy with, after you spoke with her, from what I gathered with our conversation just now, after you spoke with her, she's okay with the generator siting where it is, even though she sent the letter. So I think we're going to over specify this thing unnecessarily. If I had my way about it, I would say that we would trust the neighbors to cooperate and put screening in if they so desired. But I'm kind of reticent to require something that you're gonna be stuck with forever if it's not necessary.
I
If she's
agree.
happy with the location, and is satisfied with your reasoning as to why it has to be there, I'm just as happy as to say, go ahead and put it there and don't worry about it. And be a good neighbor and do the screening on your own.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
We are more than
That-
willing to.
Under no uncertain terms, we would absolutely have done it with or without any neighbor consultation or inquiry.
Good point, Tony.
Any other comment by the board? I make a motion, we close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Did we ask for public comment? I apologize, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make sure we made sure there's nobody that wanted to comment on this.
Carrie, was there anyone else?
I don't see anyone raising their hand right now.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Jackie.
Okay, Chairman Kenneth Cooper,
Yay?
Anthony Giardina,
Aye.
Harvey Bonaparte,
Aye.
Howard Dubs,
Aye.
Michael Nolan.
Aye.
Tony, do you want to take this one?
I will. I'll make a motion that we approve the application, the Pappas application for a new generator requiring a 7-foot side yard variance and requiring a 21-foot sum of the side yards variance for the following reasons. As we all know, we all need generators in Chappaqua. We have many power outages, and the Pappas's are just one of the many that are getting on the bandwagon with it. In their particular location, the installation of the generator will not create an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood. There will be no adverse environmental impacts by installing this generator in the location requested. There's no other viable location other than the chosen location to install this generator. And if you could start within 6 months and finish within a year and give us a final as-built measurement when it's installed, we should go.
I'll second.
Chairman Kenneth Cooper,
Favor?
Anthony Giardina,
Aye.
Harvey Bonaparte,
Aye.
Howard Dubs,
Aye.
Michael Nolan.
Aye.
Thank you. Have your variance.
Great.
Great. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very, very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take care.
Ms. Siglia?
Just unmuting. My name is Mike Bisceglia, and I'm representing myself here. My wife's also available, so she'll be sitting in. So we're going to share the screen as soon as she controls her computer. So this is our site plan, and you could see that our allowable building envelope is out here. And the existing house was non-conforming already when we bought it 23 years ago. So this piece was already non-conforming. What we're doing here on the right side is there's an existing garage and a first floor guest room that we're redoing the guest room on. We're going to add a bathroom in the back, and we're going to put a master bedroom addition on top. So even just by putting on top of our existing, we would have been non-conforming anyway. What we're doing now is we're asking for a front yard variance of 13.22 feet from the 40-foot distance. So we'll be 26.7 and change. So that's it.
How is it you came to the dimensions of the garage and second story?
The only thing I did differently from the existing footprint is there's no existing footings. This addition, I think, was built in 1956 as a breezeway. So when we did some probes, we realized there's no footings there. So I was gonna have to redo the footing. So I decided to just put them outside of where they are existing. The upstairs is actually overhanging, so it meets the existing upstairs.
Right.
So that's kind of how it came
You're
up.
basically in the same footprint that was there.
Yes, basically.
You're just overhanging a bit.
Yeah, I'm overhanging the upstairs, just so it's in line with the
house.
With the
Right.
existing house, the existing overhang, and it gets me, a little bit extra square footage.
Yeah, yeah.
Because right now, actually, we have the stair that goes into the space comes in through the middle of the space. So it was kind of critical to grab some space that way. And I can make a joke about my wife's closet, but I don't know if that's appropriate.
Better not.
She seems to be the talented one. You wouldn't have gotten online if it weren't for her.
Thank
you. Well,
I had last time when we did the design thing, I was on my computer and I couldn't share screen. It was very frustrating. So
Harry, is there anyone to speak to this matter?
I don't see anyone. If anyone's interested, just raise your digital hand. Or you can type in the chat box if you have trouble finding the digital hand.
Jackie, did we receive any letters on this matter?
I don't think so.
Okay. I make a motion that we close public hearing.
I'll second.
Chairman Kenneth Cooper,
Yay.
Anthony Giardina,
Aye.
Harvey Bonaparte,
Aye.
Howard Dubs,
Aye.
Michael Nolan.
Aye. I'll make a motion. I move that the Siglia application to reconstruct a garage and an overhead guest room requiring a variance of 14 feet be approved for the following reasons. This is a pre-existing non-conforming lot. The applicant is basically using the identical footprint to the garage space that existed before. There'll be no undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood. The benefit cannot be sought through other means. The requested variance is not substantial. The proposed variance will not have an adverse impact on the physical environment, and the alleged difficulty is not self-created. You will have 6 months to start, 1 year to complete, and you will be putting in new footings. Is that correct?
that's correct.
So there'll be a foundation survey that will be needed.
Correct.
I'll second.
Chairman Kenneth Cooper,
In favor?
Anthony Giardina,
Aye.
Harvey Bonaparte,
Aye.
Howard Dubs,
Aye.
Michael Nolan.
Aye. Thank you. You have your variance.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're
Have a
welcome.
good evening.
You too.
Aye.
Feuerspin?
We see the esteemed Bill Spade has made an appearance.
Is he here?
I have to make an occasional appearance just so you know I'm still here, still kicking. And Liz Firstman, the client, is owner of the property, is here as well.
Hello.
And we form a great team. We take good care of swim clubs when we're working together. So this one though is regarding Liz's home here on Brevoort Road. I live on Brevoort Road too. And we're here to get 2 variances for a project we did in 2015 to 2016. And to some degree it lasted, I think, through 2017, trying to get the contractor to finish everything. And this, we got variances at the time for setbacks for the garage and for the driveway slope But as it got constructed, and then we're finally getting the, applying for the C of O, discovered that the driveway slope was built even steeper than the variance that we got previously. So we need to modify one of the variances and then also get an additional variance related to the driveway slope. And I see Bob Scioli is here, so maybe I'll just do a quick overview and then Bob can talk about the letter memo that he did regarding these variances. So again, the quick overview is this was, and I'll share my screen if that's okay.
Sure.
Get myself back to my material. Sorry, I'll get there shortly. You see a site plan of the property?
We do.
Yes,
Great.
that's there.
Great. So this is actually more or less the front portion of the property. Shows the road at the bottom of the plan, the existing house across here in the beginning of the property. And then further back into the property is a deep, it goes deep. There's wetlands in the rear yard. We constructed this, what's shown as the proposed garage. These were the plans from 2015. And that garage got built. The existing driveway was already about 15% slope at the time. And, or actually, sorry, 13 or so percent at the time. And we needed to increase it slightly to accommodate this garage. So the board granted a variance for the slope, particularly the beginning portion of the driveway from the center line of the road in 35 feet is one controlled slope. And that was the slope variance that we got at the time, which was 13.6%. Now in getting the, going for the C of O for the garage, we prepared the as-built survey, and the survey revealed that the slope was built even steeper to 15.08%. So that is the amended variance that we need. And then again, Bob identified an additional variance for the maximum change in grade. And maybe at this point, I'll let Bob summarize that.
Yes, good evening, Chairman and members of the zoning board. Thank you, Bill. Yes, basically, as Bill so articulately stated, there are two variances required, one on the previous one that was a 13.6, but unfortunately, when the driveway was constructed, the new grade was found to be 15.1%. So therefore, in that first section within 35 feet of the center line of the roadway, which is Broad Road, would need a variance in the amount of 1.5%. That's the one variance, which would have to be amended. The second variance is a minor variance, basically on the change of grade based on 6420 F8B4, which states that the driveway grade from one grade to another cannot exceed 6%. In this particular case, it exceeded it by 0.3%. So basically, they would need a new variance in the amount of 0.3% for that second section of the driveway. Strictly from an engineering perspective, I don't have any objection from the variances being issued from an engineering standpoint, because the driveway is actually less than what the driveway once was when they first started this years ago. It used to be 16.5%. Now it's down to 15.1. It's a private road. It's a dead-end street. The volume of traffic along that roadway is very de minimis. So for those reasons, I find it from an engineering perspective, of course, you guys make the final say, that I have no objection to these variances being offered and granted.
Bob, there's no concern about emergency vehicles and their ability to access the property?
No. No, they didn't really change the width of the driveway, really. They actually made it better because they actually put a turnaround parking spot in, which would probably help in a ways that would help any emergency vehicles coming in. But they didn't do any major widening of the driveway to that effect.
Any members of the board have other questions?
No, I'm good with it.
Carrie, could you check the queue for us?
Sure, no one right now.
Okay. I make a motion, we close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Chairman Kenneth Cooper,
Favor?
Anthony Giardina,
Aye.
Harvey Bonaparte,
Aye.
Howard Dubs,
Aye.
Michael Nolan.
Aye.
Would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we grant Liz Ferrisman a variance, two variances. One for 1.5% on the first section of the driveway, and the other variance on the second section of the driveway for 0.3%. This was previously approved, and in constructing the driveway, it was determined that the grade was not what was proposed, and therefore the applicant had to come before this board to seek a variance, which I believe is warranted under the circumstances. The granting of the variance would not create an undesirable change in the neighborhood. This is a private road, by the way. There's no feasible method other than the variance to achieve the benefit sought. The variance sought is not substantial. This would have no adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental condition in the neighborhood. And there was no other way to build this, therefore, so it's not a self-created hardship. And for those reasons, I believe that the variance should be granted.
I'll second.
I'll second.
Chairman Kenneth Cooper,
In favor?
Anthony Giardina,
Aye.
Harvey Bonaparte,
Aye.
Howard Dubs,
Aye.
Michael Nolan.
Aye.
Thank you. You have your variance.
Thank you. If I might add one quick comment, I did this with a little trepidation and sadness in my heart because we're helping Liz sell her house and move, I think to New York City. And so I'm going to be sad. Our family's going to be sad to see them leave. I think the community, will lose a very valid, energetic person in our town. Both Liz and her husband Dan have been very energetic in everything they've been doing for the town. Liz was the Chapakaw Swim Club board president for, it seems like 30 years, and did many wonderful things there for the community. So I just want to let everybody know that we're going to say goodbye at some point soon, but we really appreciated Liz and Dan and their family in this town. By the way, they were also instrumental in starting the Swim Across America.
Swim Across America, yeah. We were the most successful Swim Across America pool swim in the country. And we've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars to fight cancer. So at Chapakaw Swim Tennis, and the community has really rallied behind us and supporting this important cause. So thank you very much, Bill. That was so nice of you to say. But I'm happy, thank you for the variance, and I'm happy my new neighbors will not have to enter the driveway, fearing that they're entering some unlawful zone.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Good night.
You too.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Good night, all.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, Bob.
We need to approve the minutes of last meeting.
We're doing that before the,
Eighth meeting approval.
I make a motion the board approve the meeting minutes for what's the date?
April 28th.
April 28th meeting.
I'll second.
Chairman Kenneth Cooper,
In favor?
Anthony Giardina,
Aye.
Harvey Bonaparte,
Aye.
Howard Dubs,
Aye.
Michael Nolan.
Aye.
Next is Chappaqua Swim and Tennis Association, Inc.
I'm going to recuse myself as previously arranged with town council, the zoning board council, and leave the balance of the meeting.
Tom, maybe we could begin with you and you could explain what brings us here this evening to speak to this issue.
Absolutely. I was called upon as the building inspector to respond to various complaints from the neighbors in regard to view of the Chappaqua Swim and Tennis Club, noises emanating from the club, and light emanating from the club from the paddle tennis courts. On February 16th, I issued a notice of violation to the club to rectify the violations. That is what brings us here today.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to note for the record, Mr. Bonaparte, has recused previously, had notified myself that he was recusing himself from any matters involving Chappaqua Swim and Tennis Club. He was an officer. I don't believe he is anymore, but that has he did recuse himself. He has not been privy to any conversations or any other issues with the board. And his prior board, his prior membership on the board of Chappaqua Swim and Tennis Club has no bearing on this. So just wanted to state that for the record.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Mr. Hollis, do you want to tell us how you've addressed these violations?
Good, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is P. Daniel Hollis from the law firm of Hollis, Laidlaw and Simon in Mount Kisco. I'm here with my associate, Sarah O'Shea, in case I need any technical assistance in any way this evening. It's her forte, not mine. And Beth D'Alessandro, who is the current president of the swim club. Mr. DiPoli correctly stated how this all started. I was retained shortly after those notices of violation were issued. 3 general areas, noise, light, and lighting and screening. I met at the site with Mr. DiPoli and the town attorney and Ms. D'Alessandro, walked them around the property to show them where the complaints were emanating from. I was urged by the town attorney to make a submission to your board to begin the discussion that we're beginning tonight, to talk about how we view these claims of violation, but what we're willing to do to soften all of the discussion, provide reasonable remedies to the complaints, and everybody can move on. We also have 2 matters pending in the Justice Court, one referenced by Mr. DiPoli, and another a noise violation, which was issued by the police department several weeks ago as a result of a contractor blowing leaves off a tennis court prior to the hour that he was supposed to start doing that. And so what I'd like to do is just go through an outline of those issues that have been raised, what we have as proposed solutions, but mostly I want to urge and recommend that in order to best understand what it is we're trying to do, what exactly the complaints are about, if they're real at all, is to have you make 2 site visits. It's an imposition, I know that, and one in particular is a pretty strong imposition because it will require after dark, but I'll get to all that in a minute. In support of the club, we submitted through Ms. Trifoletti, who, by the way, has been terrific in taking my emails and doing this ad seriatim, because it's a little difficult working with a large group and people who are trying to be helpful, who are supporters of the club. But there's 145 pages of a petition in support of the position of the Chappaqua Swim and Tennis Club. On May 24th, there was a written submission made to the zoning board by a group identify themselves as the CST Neighbors, and they identified 4 issues. A fence issue, which we'll discuss, which was addressed with the town building inspector as recently as this afternoon, noise, screening, and lighting. But what was really interesting was that May 24th submission highlighted minutes of your board on March 29th, 2017, dealing with the Whippoorwill Country Club. And I think that those minutes and that resolution are very instructive and helpful for us tonight, because they provide a background similar to ours, a roadmap as to what you did then, and actually some of the things that you determined then are precedential in nature. So I want to talk first about location. Unlike Whippoorwill.
Just interrupt for 1 second. We've gotten much wiser over the last 5 years. So I just want that to be part of the record.
I hope we all have. I hope we all have. But I think that you were pretty wise in your consideration of that application, and you did a very thorough and thoughtful job. And some of the people also on here, Ms. Hull and Mr. Gordon, were part of that, and they certainly know what they're doing. So I think that is, as I said, helpful as a roadmap, a background, and precedential impact. That application dealt with an area variance on setback, which we don't have, because the paddle tennis court there was but 30 feet from a boundary line. I'm gonna try to get rid of the chat that's going on here, and my peripheral vision is still good from my hoop days, but I don't want to watch it as it's flashing on by. We'll address those in due course, I'm sure. But Chappaqua Swim and Tennis doesn't have any of those things. We don't have any setback issues. The fence issue, there was a fence, is a fence that was damaged by a tree that toppled on it. And Ms. D'Alessandro and Mr. DiPoli were out there today, and it's sort of inaccessible. And this is the first, that particular damage to that particular part of the fence was only discovered by Ms. D'Alessandro today. And today she contacted Westchester Tree Life, who immediately went to the site, evaluated the condition of the tree and the fence, and a crew from Westchester Tree Life will go out there tomorrow to remove the limb that is impairing the fence. We don't know whether the fence needs to be replaced or simply repaired. Let's talk then about the next issue I'd like to address is the noise. As you was correctly stated in 2017, section 90-7F of your town code exempts swim and tennis clubs and country clubs from the noise ordinance. And the opponents in their May 24th submission argue that only applies to a sporting event. Well, the offending activity at the club was in fact a sporting event. Happens to be called cardio tennis, and it's not a perpetual thing at all. It's 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for 1 hour for 2 months during the summer. That's it. And the noise, we have a video that we presented, and we have a decibel analysis of what exactly that cardio training music was about. The cardio tennis music at the court nearest to the property line where the neighbors are complaining was at 67.3. And if you do just a simple Google stalking of what that translates into as far as comparable activity, you'll find that it's a vacuum cleaner, normal conversation, and a dishwasher. And mine might be going in a minute, so since I'm working from home, you may hear it. I didn't do that on purpose. The 50s, which is where a reading was taken at the courts further away from the line, which we are voluntarily agreeing to move the cardio tennis to for the season, further away. The readings at that point at the boundary line, in the boundary line area, were in the 50s. In the 50s, that is comparable to conversation and moderate rainfall. And the site visits, the one in the daylight, we'll play that one. We will play the music from the cardio tennis. The tennis pro plays it on his phone. He will play it at the exact level that he played it during cardio tennis. He has to play it at a level where he can be heard by the players, because it's not just a dance class where they dance or move to the music. It's instructional on the tennis level, so that he has to be heard above the music that's playing. So that will take place at the daytime visit, daylight visit, and also you'll be able to see the repair will have been made to the fence by then. The screening issue, we've already undertaken to plant 20 trees. They are not all as tall as I said in my letter to you of April 28th for two reasons. One, the supplier, the Pines Bridge Nursery, didn't have all of them in the same size, but nevertheless, Mr. Corelli of the town, along with our consultant from Pines Bridge Nursery, indicated that smaller trees a little further apart would be the best way to go, because slow and steady sort of wins the race, and allowing those plants to have their new growth settle in, take, and grow in an appropriate fashion. If they're too close together, they'll crowd each other out and not end up as well as they might if a little more space were provided at the outset. The green giant arborvitae, which I mentioned in my letter, has an average growth of 3 to 4 feet a year. And there's already plenty of foliage in place. You'll see that when you go to the site as well. And now I want to talk a little bit more about whippoorwill, because in the whippoorwill decision, what you did there when you talked about the screening was what I'd like you to do now. And that's why the site visit's important. I want you to go there, see it, see what's there, and see if it's sufficient. If there's a suggestion or a requirement that you feel requires more screening, we can talk about it. We're not saying that we're not going to do anything. We are saying we're not in violation. We are saying we are exempt from the noise ordinance, just like whippoorwill was, but we're definitely saying we want to be cooperative. You know, the activity in opposition to the club has been somewhat pronounced in some ways, because I myself feel that having drones fly over one's property is a little much in a zoning case. And I have, most of the cases I have are not side yards for decks or generators. They're things like this. And we haven't had many airborne assaults in any other cases, but we're having them now at the club, and they're not only offensive, they're disruptive. And so we'd like to just mention to those who might be involved in that in civilized society, respecting the privacy and the operations of others is not a bad thing to follow. With regard to the lighting, the lights were destroyed by a tree falling on them after a storm. And the lights that were replaced did use the LED lights. And the LED lights were told to us by the supplier and the contractor for the Palo tennis court construction, that they are state-of-the-art lights. And they may appear to be brighter than the halogen that was there, but the science says that isn't necessarily so. They're more directed, they're flush, when the halogen was more tilted and had a shield on it. And this is the big ask, which is for you to come out at night when daylight savings time is upon us. And it's not exactly right after work, because what we're proposing is to apply side light shields to all the lights on one of the courts. And then we would illuminate that court and illuminate the other 3 courts that don't have the shields on. We have a light meter that will measure the differences during the course of that particular maneuvering. And we can see for ourselves what, if any, difference there is in the lighting. I submitted a photometric chart from the provider of those lights, and you can see that 30 feet out rather, your illumination is at the level of 1 foot candle. So we feel that the solution that we are promoting and putting forth before your board is a big one, an expensive one, and we feel that it will lessen the light and cause it not to diffuse, if in fact it is diffusing more than it had been before. The paddle courts have been there since '67, the lights since a little after that, '71. There have never been any complaints about the lights really before this year. I'm sure you'll hear a chapter and verse about the evils of the tennis club for those who are not fans of it at the moment. But we feel this is a little bit similar to what I read in the submission that Miss Katri Bachman-Koster submitted with a history by Mr. Standerwick from 1990, which went back to 1959 and talked about how this club came to be. And when you talk about narrow vision and tunnel vision, that particular community at that time had it, because by 13 votes, they voted down a public pool. And that, according to Mr. Standerwick, was because people who had pools didn't want to pay taxes to support a pool for people who didn't have pools. That spawned the Chappaqua Swim Club, which in turn gave birth to other clubs in the Newcastle jurisdiction. But what was also troubling was how localized opposition in 1961 to the sounds of kids playing at the pool caused the then zoning board, by a less enlightened board, and with all due respect, a very less enlightened chairman, took an executive action to impose upon the club certain restrictions on noise at the pool, which a 250 person attended town meeting in the then town hall in 1961 was rescinded. So localized community opposition is not the basis for denying a zoning application, as you all well know, nor is it a localized opposition a validation of a complaint. If we're going to just balance the votes, there are 145 pages of votes that say we're doing a pretty good job. The Chappaqua Swim and Tennis Club is a major force in the community. It provides recreational activities for families and for those young people trying to learn the game, and is a healthy place for people to be in the summer. And I really hope that we can get you out there. The screening, I think is already in, and you'll be able to see that in place. We wanted to be proactive on that, get that up as quickly as possible while we were still in the spring planting season and not in the high heat of the August summer. So that's what I have to say at the outset. I'm sure you have questions of me, and I'm sure others will have points they want to make that I may be willing or wish to address tonight, but depending on the nature of them, may want to have that addressed at the meeting we have after you've made site visits, if that's your wish. I don't think you can validly evaluate the nature of these complaints and our proposed remedy unless you do make those site visits. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board.
If the board were to visit the site, whom should they make those arrangements with and how?
With Ms. D'Alessandro, and she can be there. And if it's, I would be there. As Mr. Gordon knows from other jurisdictions where he ably and nobly serves as town attorney, when there are site visits, it's private property, and we welcome the board and the town's consultants, but we don't invite the public to the site visit because it can be disruptive. I have a case up in Putnam County right now where on a very cold Sunday in February, we had a site visit which the chairman of the planning board in that case mistakenly opened to the public, and there were 80 people in attendance. It was disruptive, and the board was not able to ask questions of the property owners' representatives in a way that they could have the answers quickly and concisely, because people were finding the need to chime in, and that was not helpful to the event. So we can have that. Ms. D'Alessandro, who's on, is believe me, readily accessible, and we can arrange that. I would like to be there if Mr. Gordon's going to be there. If he's not, I don't need to be. And Mr. DiPoli obviously will be there. We can have on the lighting, those light shields, we are ordering them. If the board wishes to view the side light shields on the lights, they should be delivered within 2 weeks. and installed shortly after that. So the site visit for that aspect of our meeting can't be had till then, but all the rest of it can be held tomorrow.
Could you provide the specification for the light shield to Tom, please?
To Tom?
Yes.
Yes, it's in, I sent it to Ms. Trifoletti, and I'll send it in an email either later tonight or tomorrow to Tom.
Thank you.
And what is the specification of the screening that is being performed? How many trees or shrubs? What size?
There are 20 of them, and some are between 4 and 6 feet. Most are closer to the 4-foot size.
And what variety?
They're all the same. They're all that green giant arborvitae that I mentioned in my letter.
Right. Okay.
And that really grows quite a lot, at 4 to 6 feet in a year, which I found to be an astounding spec. But it was on the spec from the arborist and the nursery person, not something I read on the internet.
Yeah, you can't trust the internet.
Not always.
Right. Sabrina, is there anything you wanted to help us with?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, board and applicants. Yeah, I think that, we kind of need to take a step back here. So there before you tonight is kind of an introduction to some of the issues that have been going on. But I think it would be helpful if we had a special, right now the club has a special use permit issued by your board and renewed several times for various issues over the years. And at this time, I think that I would advise the board to ask for submission of a special permit application where you can attach, you can spell out all the issues that you need to address, attach all the things that you're doing, the light specs, so that it can be looked at comprehensively and the board has a better understanding of everything that's occurring on the club, at the club. As we all know, times change and activities change, and there's a need for different things to be considered. So through the special use permit, it would be helpful to understand everything that's going on in the club today, and that way staff can measure it up against what has been allowed in the past and identify any inconsistencies for the board's consideration this go around.
Do you find that acceptable, Mr. Hollis?
Well, I would, except that the problem I have with it is when you have complaints that someone's in violation of the special permit and it prompts a de novo look at the entire operation and a review of the special permit, I think that's a little onerous. And I think the club, it's a private club, and they pay dues to belong there. And one of the things they have to pay now is probably an assessment to pay me. And on top of that will be an assessment to pay a civil engineer and a lighting engineer, and who knows who else might be involved. I just think taking a step back, Ms. Hull is right. I think that's a really good idea to take a step back and look at what the approvals are currently in place. And when you go there, see in what way you feel we might not be in compliance before we start going down the road of having to start with an application for an amendment to a special permit, which we don't think we need because we don't think we're in violation.
Well, let's back up here. So you have right now you have a special use permit that is regulating the activities at your club because you are located within a residential neighborhood. Okay. Right. You have made certain changes, or you're in the process of making changes to lighting on site, and there's activities on site that were not part of your special use permit from the information that we've received. And so part and parcel to any club in town, any private club, they are required to come back to the permitting entity and amend their special permits. So it's not a matter of check to see what the history is and what the consistency is. It's a fact that, coming, back to this board, we're going to do that due diligence to understand, kind of what's there now and permit what it is you want to do now.
What we want to do now is just continue to operate legally as we have been. Let's take a look at what's being complained about here. Lighting, number one, we replaced the bulbs. We didn't do anything else. That's all we did. The noise is 3 hours a week, 8 weeks a year. And who's to say that that's hardly a violation of any condition of any existing special permit, in my humble opinion. And I think that to cause us to have to make the application for an amendment to a special permit, because that's, I think, what you're asking for, I think that's a bridge too far, perhaps. But that's my opinion. I think that the screening is proper there at present, and we are doing things to make it better in the eyes of others. The that's cardio tennis, we are moving further away to ameliorate any off-site hearing of that music, which, according to the decibel readings, is not that big a thing. I think this is, I hear what you're saying, and I respect your opinion, but I disagree with it.
Mr. Chair, if I could jump in. I concur with Ms. Charney Hall. I have great respect for Mr. Hollis. I think just by basically admitting that the lighting has been changed and the lighting is specifically called out in some of the prior approvals, just that would require some type of an amended application to have changed that lighting. I understand he's saying it's because a tree fell on them, but if there are some specifics regarding that, and any changes would just require an amended application, that in and of itself. We can argue about that, but I think it's pretty clear that would require it. The activity of the cardio tennis, that's a new activity. My understanding is if you're going to add a new activity within a special use in that residential zone, it needs to be done through an amendment to your special use permit. You can't just put in new activities without getting it approved by this board as an amendment to the special permit. I don't think, in regard to what Mr. Hollis is saying, we're not looking to do anything de novo. There are parameters within the existing special permits that have been issued and the amendments there too, regarding, times of operations and certain other things that I think we can continue having them all in one place, in one resolution, without having to go back. It's going to protect the club itself, because you're going to have hours of operations with respect to cardio tennis or certain other things that you want to have on that CSD wants to have on the property. Those are going to be spelled out, and it's going to protect the club as much as it's going to protect the neighbors. And I really think that's that's an appropriate way of moving forward. I think it's given where things stand. So
there's been an inordinate. I understand there's been an inordinate amount of pressure put on the town by the opponents. I get that, but are we going to evaluate every activity at every other country club in town to make sure that they don't have something new that might make a little more noise? Cardio tennis is tennis. There just happens to be music playing. I would respectfully request that if I went around that neighborhood, there has to be at least one basketball hoop where, if the kids are anything like I was when I was a kid playing in my driveway, it's noisy. And I would also respectfully submit that there's somebody out watching their car with Snoop Doggy Dogg playing in the background. And that's a lot louder than the cardio tennis music. So all things were way out of proportion here. When we
Mr. Hollis, I think those people, as you said, are subject to the noise ordinance.
They are.
You're saying you're not.
They are.
You are subject to a special permit requirement that limits what you can do.
That's where you and I will disagree on the law, because there's a specific exemption in the ordinance for sporting events for country clubs and swim clubs. It's there. And so we are not, the level of noise, that's what that zoning board chairman in 1961, he didn't like the noise. This is worse, really. He didn't fly any drones over, but he complained about the noise the kids were making at the pool. And he went into executive session to stop it. This is, you're not doing that, but I think it's given the nature of the complaints, why don't we try to reason together, in the words of Lyndon Johnson, and take a look at what the complaints are, take a look at what I'm suggesting. And if you like what I'm suggesting as a remedy to the complaints, we'll amend this, we'll agree to an amendment of the special permit to include those conditions. We'll do that. But to start all over again, there's a secret process. You know the process as well or better than I do, each and all of you. But I think it's an overreaction to say that changing a light bulb is a alteration of a special permit to the level that you need to come for a total review of the operations of what's going on there. To have a complaint about the level of screening when you go there, you can see there is tremendous amount of screening, especially at this time of year. Arborvitae that we're going to put on that boundary line is going to be green all year. That takes care of that. So you have noise, lighting, and screening. Those are the three issues. I'm sure we'll probably hear something else that happened somewhere along the line. But I really think I would respectfully ask that you do the club the courtesy, not me, but the club, as a solid citizen in this community, to take a look at the complaints in the field, the proposed solutions in the field, before we start down any other roads. Otherwise, I'll just go to court, and I'll just stay in court and let Judge Krause, or forget the other judge's name, determine whether or not I'm in violation. That's what it's about. I don't want to do that. And that's, I said that to Eric a long time ago. I want reasonableness. Your board is very reasonable. I listened to what was going on here tonight. You're very reasonable. You listen to the applicant. You take in things into consideration. I'm asking you to do that for Chappaqua Swim and Tennis, is to just listen, give them a chance to show you what they're proposing to remedy complaints, which for the most part, I feel are overstated.
I do think, Mr. Hollis, that documenting the current and future circumstances of the activities at the club would be of benefit to both the club and to the neighbors, so that we don't have to have this back and forth over issues that are fairly subjective as it relates to things like noise and screening and so forth.
I think
go ahead.
I'm sorry, I interrupted. You finished, sir.
No, that's okay. No,
I'm not opposed to that in a general sense, and I'm glad to do that. In these, there's three areas of concern: screening, lighting, and noise. And let's see what they really are, and let's see what you think about them, and let's see if you think that what we're proposing as a solution is sufficient for the common general health, safety, and welfare. That's what we're talking about here. Every one of the people that have complained, I promise you I'm right about this. There's not one of them that owned that house in 1959 or in 1967 or maybe even in 1971. You buy, as Mr. Gordon knows, we have an institutional situation in a different town right now where he's the town attorney, where one neighbor is taking an educational institution and complaining. This person bought a house next to a school that's grades 7 through 12. What do you think is going to go on 100 acres next to you? What do you think? If you buy a house next to a college, a school, or a club, it's not going to be as quiet as if it was a national cemetery. So I just want the chance to have you look at it. And if you have certain power over the club through your use of the town code, I understand that. But what I'm asking is, we're trying to be reasonable. We were told all along, just let's be reasonable. There's a reasonable solution here. Well, a reasonable solution can't be reached unless there's a reasonable effort to identify the complaint. And I think you need to be in the field to do that, to both see the screening, see the lighting, and hear the noise. Not both, those are three things.
Obviously, going and hearing the noise will only allow us to pinpoint that moment in time when we are there. So regardless of where the rest of this evening goes, I think it's imperative on the club to document what transpires at the club, on which courts, at what time, so that that is further documented for the special use permit.
I mean, that's nearly impossible. That your special permit would actually say that you can only have cardio tennis Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 to 11.
No. We're not telling you you can only have it. We're asking you, when will you have it, and on what courts, so that it can be documented, so that it never returns to this court, I guess, that has.
That's what I'm saying. We're willing to do that. We want to show you where it has been. We want to play the music there. We want to play the music where we want to move it to. That's what I want to do.
I just want to say the special use permit is not only, because you're existing in a residential area, it's also a permit that will protect your activities as well. It's the intention through a special use permit to protect the entity who is taking advantage of having the special use permit, as well as protect the surrounding neighbors. So it's kind of a document that will kind of set forth expectations for both parties involved. And right now, the club has a special use permit, which is saying one thing that could be different than what is out there today. And that is something that this board is responsible for ensuring is adequately represented.
I'm not sure we're taking advantage of the special permit. I'm not agreeing that we're in violation of the special permit.
That's not what I'm saying. It's not taking advantage, but the special permit is intended to protect you and the neighbors. Okay, it outlines how your activities. So when you say you don't want the board to restrict your activities to Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that's not the intention here.
It's a little bit what I heard in a way, because you wanted to, I think Mr. Cooper said that he wanted to know us to alert the board and the community, I guess, when and what we were going to be doing. I don't think, I've played a lot of paddle tennis in my, prior to a lot of orthopedic surgeries and advancing age. And, the group of guys I played with, we probably made a heck of a lot more noise on Thursday night at Walkabout Country Club than the cardio tennis people make on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for 8 to 10 times during the summer. I'm just asking, to, before we start down that path, and it may be a path that we're going to have to go, or we choose to go a different way. If we're going to find a reasonable solution to a problem, let's see in exactly what's being talked about, the lighting, the screening, and the noise, and take what I've said about what we're willing to do voluntarily to ameliorate those complaints or satisfy those complaints, and then we'll go from there. I don't think that's an unfair request on my part. I don't think it's outlandish. I don't think it's out of ordinary or improper.
Mr. Hollis, we are going to do a site visit. We will see what there is to be seen. I go back, though, to what Sabrina was saying earlier, that without us understanding the club's operations, we can't be in a position to respond next week, next month, next year to a neighbor who makes an inquiry or a complaint or registers a concern about what is occurring at the club. We're just looking for we need the playbook so we know what is going on so that we can respond. Because I would tell you, Mr. Hollis, we have probably informed neighbors about activities so that they understand the special use permit. Not in your case, I'm talking about other cases here in the town. And that has resolved the situation. I would say, just looking at the correspondence that we've received, that going to the club and saying, yes, that's the appropriate number of arborvitae, or moving an activity from point X to point Y, I don't know that that's going to serve you well into the future.
I'm not sure anything we do is going to serve us well in the future. Not with your board, but the nature of the complaints where we have air intelligence gathering over the club. That's extreme. Of all the hard cases I've had, that's a tad extreme. So there's that level of observation of the club and what we do at the club, because that's why the drones are up there. They've already found Osama bin Laden. That's not who they're looking for there. So why are drones flying over the tennis club at 11 o'clock on a Sunday morning, which they did on May 9th, if that was a Sunday? I think the club is being asked to do more in the first instance than I think is necessary to solve a problem. The complaints are noise, screening, and lighting. And we will explain every aspect of the club's operation while you're there. Ms. D'Alessandro will be there, the club manager will be there, and the tennis pro will be there. We will explain everything that goes on during that site visit at every location, and generally what the hours are. So
generally what the hours are is the problem. That's when you're going to run into the issue. Without setting, you have an hours of operation for when the club operates. There was a question in the chat, so every time it changes its tennis schedule, there needs to be some type of schedule when the cardio tennis cannot start before. I mean, that's the bottom line. Whether it needs to be, whether it can be after a certain hour, that's another thing. But I think you'd say it's reasonable to have it starting at a certain hour and not before that. Since you're playing, that, and that's the kind of thing we're talking about putting into, the form of whether if you want to just say conditions to the existing permit, however we're going to do it. But you can't, but how are you going to enforce, how is it going to be enforced if you say, well, we promise not to start before, before a certain hour, but then.
I'm sorry, Eric, you.
We didn't hear that last comment, Eric.
I just said how, without some type of either condition written into the special permit, and to do that, we need just an application saying what you're planning to do. Without that, how is this board and how is the enforcement branch of the town supposed to say, no, this activity isn't allowed to happen before a certain hour?
Well, we can do it any number of ways. We can do it as a stipulation in the justice court matters and say, the noise complaint that's been put against us, the hours of operation for cardio tennis will be only between weekdays between 10 and 11. That the screening is in and the side light shields will be put on all 4 courts. If you think when you go out there that they do a really good shielded that way, as opposed to the 3 that won't be shielded when you see them. I mean, I think that to have. This is my internet connection is unstable. There's a karma sort of thing.
If I may, just to throw an example, the town has a standard on LED lights of no more than, I think, 3,500 Kelvin. right? And they're supposed to be down shielded, shielded. So, the question is, are you shielding something that is within the range of temperature that the town has been requiring every other applicant who is putting in LED lights to utilize? So those are the things that we need to understand.
Yeah, I mean, that's something, information from our lighting contractor, and we'll see. I don't know that answer. I don't want to guess and say something.
Right, and the way to kind of put this in perspective is to file a special use permit amendment application, and and if the only things that you're changing have to do with noise and screening, or lighting, noise, and screening, then those are the three things that the board is going to look at.
And I'm glad to look at those three things and in the context of the complaints to see how, if at all, we're in violation of the existing permits as to those three issues, and do those three issues in the permit need to be changed. And then I'm glad to talk about an amendment. I'm absolutely glad to, but to start from the beginning to examine the entire operation of the club because of complaints in three areas, I think is overreaching and overbroad. I mean, I think that the neighbors can't micromanage. That's not, it's not fair to micromanage what goes on at a country club. Times change. Paddle tennis is an up and down sport. It actually was very down until the pandemic had people that weren't getting off the train at 9 o'clock.
So I think we're having some connection issues due to the storms and whatnot. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
But mine is definitely going in and out. I can't always.
Yeah, we lost half the board. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's going pretty crazy right now. Half the board is gone. Well, Tony, it's you and I.
Okay, I'm ready.
And Howard. So
well, I think that we need to just do the site visit before we go too far with everything.
Tony,
we can talk about this all night long, but until we do a site visit and see what's actually happening.
Yeah, but I don't think you guys are judging. I don't think your board is judging whether or not there's violations.
No, I don't. I think, but not to judge it or anything, but to at least get a baseline as to what's going on at the club.
I would definitely encourage a site visit. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And I have, speaking for myself personally, I have no objection to a day visit and a night visit. I mean, let's try to get all the information we can. As to the special use permit, what I've gotten through the last week or two from on the internet, from emails and such.
Not analysis, but we'll pull together the special use permit. Like there is no comprehensive special use permit.
This was going to be my suggestion to oh God.
Hey, Sarah.
Who's on? Who's with us? Are you with us, Howard?
I'm with you.
Oh, you with us? Sabrina, you still with us?
I'm still with you, yes.
Okay. But I was going to suggest that staff go ahead and take all these old minutes with all these stipulations about what the club can and cannot do and put it into a comprehensive document that we can look at.
Yes, absolutely. And typically, yes, but typically we do that with an application made and fees paid, so that we can move on things.
There's the kicker, the fees have to be paid.
Yeah, the fees have.
Well,
You know,
but
you
I-
guys
but-
are going to go out there and do a site visit. You're acting as if it is a normal application, but the applicant hasn't done the paperwork necessary, so we can process it accordingly.
Well,
Well, isn't there a
that would be-
current approval? There's a current approval, correct?
Correct. And it's a,
So why
and
don't we
right
say-
now, there has been question. There has been question as to whether or not the club is behaving in accordance with the current approval.
So why don't we have copies of the current approval and we,
This one is in pieces over the past years.
That's what I'm trying to say, that it's impossible to put it all together and figure out what's going on unless somebody.
I'm back, sorry.
A competent staff person, and I'm looking at one on screen right now, just sits down and
Happy
puts
to
this
do
all.
it. I am happy to do it, but you know,
Puts this all together for us.
application and the fees, I am happy to do it.
But that's one of my points, that the recording has stopped, but we'll pay for that. If, you know, I'm glad to pay for an informal discussion. Can anyone hear me, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Oh,
I can
okay.
hear you.
I can hear you.
Everybody seems to freeze every now and then. It's like one of those dance games that we did when we were kids. You freeze or something. Yeah, if the issue is the town doesn't think we've paid a fee to have this discussion, tell me what the fee is. We'll pay it. But
And we'll give you the application to fill out.
Well, I'm not gonna commit to applying for an amendment to a special permit quite yet, because I'm not sure that that's in my client's best interest. I need to think about that, and I really need to hear. Eric is going to call in, it says.
Eric is listening right now, he said.
Okay. You know, I really want to evaluate what's in my client's best interest as to the nature of these complaints. We don't feel we're in violation of a special permit. Any of the conditions that are there, they go and to try to take that, which is a crazy quilt, and I'm not being in any way.
I agree with you.
To take it as a crazy quilt and make it a cohesive function or covering, it's not going to happen that way. There are comments, there's side comments that find their way into a resolution. I mean, things were done differently 40 and 50 years ago. It was more of a live along, get along place, like the world was. And so you know, if there's a fee to have this discussion continued after the site visit, if the form is different than for an application for a special permit, I'll fill it out, we'll pay the fee. But at the moment, I'm not committing to making an application for an amendment to a special permit, because I don't think one needs to be applied for.
Mr.
So
Hollis, I don't know.
where are we going from here? I
Mr.
was
Hollis.
gone for 15 minutes maybe.
Yeah,
I tried to
I
hear
don't know if you heard our discussion. You were probably getting on or off, but I was suggesting that we don't go for a new special use permit document in the entirety. But what we need to do is take all these old meeting minutes that in effect became a special use permit and somehow put them in some semblance of order in a cohesive form on a document that we as the board can review, so we know what we're at and what we're standing for. I don't want to see you have to apply for something that you don't need, but we need to also have the paperwork in front of us to know where we stand and what kind of ruling we're going to make.
The recording, yeah, and that's sort of what I was intimating, that the progression from 59 to present talks about a lot of different things at different times. And I think that would be a good idea for you to see where the special permits are vis-a-vis screening, from the beginning, though, from the beginning. Because if whatever was
from the beginning.
So in order to do that, there's a fee involved.
Pardon me?
In order to do that, there's a fee involved that somebody's going to have to pay. And if the club is willing to pay it, we can put all these documents together and then come to some kind of a reasonable discussion and conclusion as to what we need to do and what we don't need to do.
If it's a fee for a preliminary conference or whatever it is, glad to do it, glad to pay for that. but
Okay.
application
Go
to
ahead,
amend the
Sabrina, you
special
just got
permit, we're not
permission.
there. Pardon me, sir?
I said, you just gave Sabrina permission to put all these documents together.
When I get the application and the fee,
All right, send me that form, as long as it's not as,
sure, I'll send you the form.
thank you.
Yes, we do have some people in the queue.
Sure.
And what, have we figured out about site visits before we
But, well,
start?
here's the thing, the whole board isn't here. You really need more than one member of the board to kind of agree to what's going on. Listen, I don't know. The board needs to make a decision.
Wait, don't we have Howard? I see Howard.
I see Mr. Dubs, I
Here, I
see.
see Ken. Do we
I
have
see Mr.
enough?
Mr. Jardina,
I'm
I see
here.
Mr. Nolan.
See Mr. Nolan.
We're all here.
Yeah, they're all here. You only have 4 for this.
Right, we
Right,
only have
four.
4 on the board. Harvey's recused, Harvey Bonaparte.
Right, so the 4 are here. Eric, do you want to kind of lead the board so that they make the right decision?
Well, I think look, I do believe a site visit is appropriate. The board can either choose, if you're going to do it with a quorum of the board, you should notice the visit and pick a date and time when you're going to come, or you can choose to go individually or arrange to go 2 at a time. I know with COVID, a lot of the boards have been going individually, arranging for individual visits. So that's fine too, and it might be easier if you want to make a night visit to see the lights. I'm fine either way. I certainly don't think council needs to be at these visits. I don't want to have the additional expense for the club, certainly, unless the board feels it's necessary that I'm there. And so that's, I think, the first issue. The second issue, I guess, is, Mr. Hollis has to make a decision. I think he's heard tonight, that the direction I believe the board wants to go, and the planning department and legal, is that there should be some kind of application to amend the special permit. If it's just limited, the applicant directs where that goes. If the applicant wants to limit it to just 2 issues, maybe the lights and the and maybe, address whatever issues it thinks it needs to address, that's what the application will involve. If that's the only issues that need to be addressed, then we can be done. It may be, when we issue a final resolution, we may take some of those parameters that were put in, such as some of the start times, and, just to put those into one format, one place, to get that in place. And then, that may be necessary. And we often do that when there is a amendment for one particular item. We issue a new resolution that incorporates all the old conditions in it. We do that for many, it wouldn't just be for you, it's for many of the special permits that have been done piecemeal over time.
It is actually the form for all permits, all amendments to existing permits that have been issued in years past. That's what we do today, because the record is, as you said, a patchwork quilt. We try and make it no longer a patchwork and put it in one place. So moving forward, we don't spend, an enormous amount of time putting it together.
And I just want to clarify something.
I think that I go back to my original request that a visit be made to see lighting, screening, and noise, evaluate those 3 things, and determine if you think amendments are required. And after that, we can continue the discussion. But right now, it's my position that we are not in violation of existing special permits. And I don't want to open Pandora's box, because all of us that do this for a living in different jurisdictions know that Pandora's box, once opened, doesn't close. And especially when there's localized community opposition of a very significant nature.
I just want to clarify.
Pardon me?
I just want to clarify one thing for the residents on the chat. There's no putting start times and stop times on every activity. It's start times. It's start times when the club when certain operations can first begin, and then when they occur throughout the evening, maybe an end time, start time. But that's not something I think this board would be interested in doing. You know,
There already aren't there already times in all the amendments when you can't have tennis before a certain hour? And
right.
by tennis, that's, you know, the old-fashioned lawn tennis, as it was called once upon a time. And the same applies for paddle tennis by implication, if not specific direction. The same goes with the lights going off at 10 o'clock. Unfortunately, the lights were on after 10 a couple of times. I learned today that the lights are publicly accessible, and who knows whether the last people that played didn't turn them off, but you know, timers will be in place that they'll go off at the time if it's in the middle of a game even. You know, that's what they had at other places I've played through the years. But I think that it's really important, you know, in the first year of law school, you learn issue identification, right? Is the most important thing you have to do in evaluating a case. And I think this board needs to have issue identification as to whether or not to, the big step because of this kerfuffle over noise, fencing, and lighting is sufficient to warrant an analysis of the entire 60 years plus of this club's operations and its special permits if they're woven together in proper fashion. So I think that's expensive for Sabrina and Eric to do. It's expensive for me and the Chappaqua Swim and Tennis team to do, and I think it's unwarranted. It's a small club. We're not talking Wingfoot here in Westchester Country Club. This is a small club.
Mr. Hollis, when is the fence determination going to be made as to what the remedy is?
Pardon me, sir. I did what?
The fence. When is the determination?
Oh, tomorrow. Tomorrow they're going out there.
That's not to say the work would be occurring if there was to be work. It's just an assessment tomorrow?
Tomorrow is an assessment of the fence after the tree is removed. Is that correct, Beth? Ms. D'Alessandro?
Sorry, that's correct. Tomorrow, a crew from Westchester Tree Life is going to go in and do the work to remove the tree. And then the fence, if it needs to be repaired, will be repaired immediately thereafter. It's quite possible that the fence can be repaired by us, is what I mean. Once the tree is removed, that fence might be repairable by us. If it isn't, we will bring in a fencing company to repair it.
So it seems to me, except for the screening, there isn't much for the board to really evaluate in that this fence work needs to take place. The lighting shields have not come in and won't be in for 2 weeks. And I have to tell you that the issue of the noise I find perplexing because I don't know how the board can make an evaluation about noise, whether they're there for a half hour or an hour or a day or a week or a month. So I'm not sure that at this point in time, there's much for us to actually observe. I think the time might be better spent trying to put together this document. Eric, what do you think? Should we have some of the public hear from them now?
That's up to the board. I mean, I think the public, obviously some of the concerns raised by the neighbors, they're going to want to comment on those at some point. So you may want to get, I think maybe limiting the time that each person can speak, or if there's one representative, I don't know how, I don't know how many people want to speak on this. So that's part of the issue.
Well, we'll try to have people limited to one subject and not have them repeat themselves, and I'll try to monitor that.
It would also be helpful if folks are wanting to talk to raise their hand on the screen, and that way the board will be able to see how many people and understand the time that it's going to take. Right now, there's 2 hands raised.
If anyone had to dial in because of the internet connection, you can raise your hand on the phone, but with *9, and that way we'll be able to identify you.
Glad I don't have to do that. yet.
So Kenneth, let me know, should we go from the top?
Sure, the top's a good place to start.
Okay, Brian Knapp. You'll just need to unmute yourself.
Hi, this is Jonathan Taub. I got knocked out from the internet. I live next door, so I ran over to Brian's house. I had my hand up initially. So if it's okay, I'd like to, it's myself and Brian speaking
Yeah,
on
please go ahead.
Okay, so, I'm not an old time, person from the way back days of 1950 or 1960 and everything that went on and what clubs are. But I have been in my house for 21 years. And I'm also a former board member of Chappaqua Swim and Tennis. And we have tried very amicably to sort of resolve these issues. We were set to have a meeting with Beth, and then the club lawyered up. And so I want everyone out there to realize that we're not trying to do anything to harm the club. We're just trying to get a few things set so we can enjoy living next to the club. We don't care about the swim meets. We don't care about the kids swimming. We don't care about regular tennis.
Sir, could I just interrupt for 1 second? I'm sorry. Could you tell us what your personal concerns are, or if you're the spokesperson?
Absolutely. Just wanted to give a little upfront. I mean, Mr. Hollis has been speaking for a long time, so our concerns in terms of the noise is that everything conforms with what the town codes are. So there's no tennis, there's no leaf blowing, there's no tennis court grooming before, I guess, 8 in the morning during the week and 9 in the morning on the weekends, the same as whatever the leaf blower situation is for everyone. Another thing in terms of the noise is that in the bylaws of the club, I believe that there is no amplified music is allowed. We've completely, we accept the July 4th party and the music that they play then, and that's fine. But the notion that the cardio tennis is just the guy with his phone putting it on a tiny speaker is humorous. Because I've been here when that stuff's playing, and it's not a guy with a tiny little speaker doing it. Plus, I think that they open it up to non-members of the club, which I don't know if that's a violation as well. So that's the thing with the noise. The tennis lights, the platform tennis lights, before this happened, they had 4 poles of lights. There are now 6 poles of lights. Every club, every other organization in town that's done the LED lights, as Sabrina mentioned, has had to go before the town and do a whole plan with the lights and have feedback from the community and see what they're going to do. The club put the lights in without any of this. They didn't approach anyone. They didn't approach any entity. They put them in, which frankly, is, and as Mr. Hollis admitted, he says that, the lights were left on a couple of times, but I can tell you it was more than a couple of times. And the fact that they didn't, these lights can be turned off by phone. And the fact that they weren't on an automatic timer says that the club really didn't care about what was going on with the neighbors. Okay?
Thank you.
And
thank you.
Yeah, and one with in terms of the, with the trees, it's a step in the right direction. But I also feel that for our neighbors bordering on the Tanglewild side, they're sort of underserved in terms of what they're looking to do to screen.
Thank you.
And now Brian Knapp is going to speak.
Sorry, hi, real quick, Brian Knapp, next door neighbor, Jonathan Taub, share a property line, obviously with CST. So just one thing I'd like to mention is, we've heard some specifications about the lights that were installed. They are incredibly bright. And what I would suggest is that the ZBA review the planning board meeting from June 2nd, 2015. Because this meeting was held, sort of at the onset of when LED lights were coming in. And in that meeting, Michael Allen of the planning board said in the minutes that, 4,600 Kelvin, which is the color of the lights, is considered daylight. Greater than 5,000 Kelvin is daylight vibrant, and greater than 5,600 Kelvin is midday summer. So actually in June of 2015, there was a local business, it was Mavis Tire, went before the planning board committee to install 5,600 Kelvin LED lamps. The long and short of it is the town said that they cannot install lights that are brighter. I believe it was 2,700 Kelvin. And as a consequence of that, all of the other clubs that have installed lights, Whippoorwill was limited to 2,700 Kelvin. Chapel Crossing was limited to 2,500 Kelvin. So CST, the lights that were installed, and I know CST submitted some materials that showed the specifications of the lights. The material is a little hard to parse because there's kind of a lot of different varieties of lightness that you can get from Total Platform Tennis. But these lights are only ordered in 4,600, 5,000, and 5,700 Kelvin, none of which is permitted under town code. So it's clear as a summer's day that CST has installed lights that are greater than or equal to 5,000 Kelvin, which is simply not permitted. And so everybody else has gone through a process to get these lights approved by the ZBA, by the planning board. There's been impact studies. And what we're saying is, look, these lights are in our backyard. It's light pollution. It's awfully bright. And we have a tolerant, like we're tennis players. Like we have no objection to playing tennis or platform tennis, but there's got to be parameters and they have to be held to the same standard. And so that includes screening. That includes, limited times of use, automatic shuts off. That's the easy stuff. The harder stuff is that these lights are so bright. And I think the site visit is a good idea. The problem is that the site visit is now going to be made in in May or June when the foliage is in, right? And so tennis, paddle tennis is a winter pursuit. And so, we started kind of complaining about this in January, February, because there's no foliage, right? So there's no screening. So the lights are awfully bright. As one of the neighbors who submitted some complaints as well said, it's as if a spaceship landed in our backyard. And so we've been trying to engage with the club on a good faith basis to have conversations about this. And again, they've chosen a legal route. And I just question the whole decision making here because we could have come to terms on some of these things. Now the fact that they've installed lights that are far brighter than they're permitted to install, and that they're more lights than they were permitted to install, I mean, they have to reconcile that with you guys, right? With the town. That's not, just an issue of neighbor complaints. Obviously, the building inspector thought that there was, cause to issue the citation. So it's just like let's come together. Let's work this thing out. The fence is getting fixed. Fantastic. We have been notifying the club literally for years that the fence has been down. Okay, this is a fundamental safety issue. I don't even know why it's been an issue. I mean, we have corresponded with the CST's manager, and it's very clear. Like he would he was sort of laughing, like he didn't care to address it. So the fact that it's getting fixed, excellent, great, thank you. Around the noise, look. A lot of the noise complaints, and by the way, so I've lived here for almost 8 years now. I've never had any issues with the club whatsoever until last summer. And the issues started was around mowing and blowing at 7:30 in the morning, right? And then also early morning tennis at 7 o'clock in the morning, where you have a very spirited group who is shouting obscenities virtually in our backyard, having a spirited tennis game. I'm a tennis player myself. It's great. Play tennis. No one wants to object to people playing tennis, but there's got to be some parameters recognizing that there are neighbors in the backyard. I think screening is part of it. Again, I commend the club for taking the steps that they're taking. But as Jonathan mentioned, Oak Hill is one side. There's also Tanglewild, right? And so I think the site visit is a good idea. So you all can get out and you can see for yourselves. And we've offered in our letters that we've said that we would host anybody who wants to come over to my property, to Jonathan's property, to take a look for themselves. But again, the big difference is with the lights is it's a winter pursuit. We now have foliage in, and it sort of befuddles me that we're talking about just putting in screens on the lights when then there's been these sort of extensive processes by all these other clubs to comply with this new technology. I mean, it's really stadium quality LED lights, and it's light pollution. And we want to figure out a way to address this. And, you know, we've gotten a lot of criticism from the community for raising this issue. We certainly recognized when we bought our house 8 years ago that we were moving into a club. We had no issue for the club, you know, for years. You know, we love the hearing children swimming and playing. You know, Mr. Hollis raised the 1960 example of you know, I guess the ZBA chair at the time who had issue with that. Like, that's not what this is about at all. We have never threatened the club legally. We do not have lawyers. We're trying to engage with the club on a good faith basis. But these are fundamental quality of life issues that I think needs to be addressed. And we want to be an active part of that. We're not trying to shut down the CST, the club, as members, you know, or people in the community would have you believe. We're not, you know, sort of the Grinches, you know, looking to, you know, curtail people's enjoyment of the pool. But these are important issues that we'd like to work out. And again, the lights, you got to recognize, you know, and I'm sure you do, that the technology here is far, far different than it was a number of years ago. We don't think that these lights are permitted. And all we ask is that the club be held to the same standard as any other club, or, you know, by law, right? But, you know, by the same, you know, town code and laws. And that's all.
Thank you.
I'll pause there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hollis, do you want to just address the light issue? You're on mute. You're on mute.
I know, sorry.
Okay.
The light shields, side light shields that we're proposing to put on
I'm
the
sorry,
one.
put aside the shields for a second. Tell us about the Kelvin. Tell us about the intensity of the light.
I don't want to take a guess on that, and I'm not 100% sure what they are. I know that they are state of the art. I'm not sure that they are 5,600, you know, and I've seen pictures that the opposition has put into play, and what the shields, the side shields will do is restrict it, and restrict diffusion. So I'll get that information for you. I don't want to guess and make a statement that is not 1,000% accurate.
Okay, thank you. Carrie, who's next?
We have Ali Kemtab. Hold on one moment. Just need to unmute yourself.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Hi.
First, I just wanted to take a moment to address this constant mention that CST lawyered up. This is obviously a matter that the board takes seriously and the club takes seriously. And many of us know and understand that with being on a board comes great responsibility. You have a duty to the bondholders of the club. So lawyering up is a very loose term. It's not fair. It's not a fair characterization. That was Beth's responsibility as president of the board, and she's responsible to.
Ms. Chemtep, we're beyond that.
Okay, well, I wanted to note that. And also, I guess I have a question for the board. What would be your resistance to first paying a site visit? Before we jump to the conclusion that an amendment to the special permit is required, why wouldn't you?
Who said there was any resistance?
I'm asking why you wouldn't. If there would be a reason why you wouldn't pay a site visit. And we're talking about these lights from the paddle tennis court, but the paddle tennis courts haven't been used for months. They won't be used this summer. So you could very well pay a site visit in the winter when there is no foliage, and you could see for yourself. We could delay making
This is going to be resolved before the winter, trust me.
But would there be any hesitancy to pay a site visit? And if so, why?
There's no hesitancy about paying a site visit. We're trying to collect information about the lights, which hasn't been documented yet. So we don't want to make an off-the-cuff assessment of something until we have the facts.
But would asking for an amended special permit be making assessment on something without having all of the facts if you haven't paid a site visit? That's my concern, is that you're going to require something without first coming to CST and seeing for yourself if these modifications and changes are sufficient and then don't require any amendments.
We're going to make a site visit. We're also going to collect information from the applicant, and then we will make our assessment. What else would you like to discuss?
That's my main concern right now, is that CST be given the same courtesy that some of these neighbors have been given during their year-long crusade.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate your comments. Carrie, who's next?
Sure. Next, we have Carolyn Simpson. Just unmute yourself.
Hello there. Just wanted to chime in and say we live in close proximity to CST and have been living here for 25 years, and we have never had a complaint for lighting, noise, screening, nothing. It's just all been great. So just wanted to let you guys know.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Carrie?
Sure. Next, we have William Coster. Please unmute yourself.
Mr. Costner?
Yeah, hi, it's Bill Coster. And for full disclosure, I am a board member. I have one clarification and one question for clarification. So to Jonathan's point, our current technology for the lights on the paddleball court does not allow for remote canceling of the lights through a phone access. It is all manual. It's on a light post. So someone has to be at the club to turn it off.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay. The second question or point of clarification question I have is, my understanding of looking through some of the ordinances that we have is that a lot of the timing that is specific about when noises can be made for doing different actions is based on residential properties, not necessarily clubs, schools, playgrounds, etc. So maybe I've misread it, but while I'm not saying that we haven't had a couple of issues where there have been workers who have been clearing courts, etc., before 8 o'clock during the week, during the week or 9 o'clock on the weekend, my challenge is whether or not that actually applies to the club.
I'm sorry, what that last comment? I'm sorry,
So the question about the timing of when noises can be made using leaf blowers or wherever it is, my understanding from the reading of the ordinances in town is that that applies to residential properties. We are not a residential property.
The club is governed by a special use permit. And a lot of the conversation you've heard this evening is about what's in the permit, what isn't in the permit. And that's what's governing these issues.
I appreciate that, although I don't know that a special permit necessarily would say that we would be looking for an exemption to a residential property ordinance when we are not a residential property.
Please don't confuse the.
Well, I don't believe that the ordinances that you're referring to only apply to residential properties first.
Okay, I would like
to what they are. So
okay, thank you, Eric. I appreciate your input, but I think someone should provide clarification because I don't believe that that's the way the ordinance reads.
Okay, we will look into that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenneth.
Carrie?
There's no one else. Again, if someone that's on the phone would like to raise their hand to speak, you just need to dial *9. And I don't see anyone currently.
Okay, board, let's just talk about the site visit issue. As I think you've heard, people are assessing the fence tomorrow. The screening, the arborvitae screening has gone up. The lighting shields will be installed in 2 weeks. What is your sense as to when and if a site visit should be made.
Isn't our normal site visit scheduled the Saturday before our upcoming meeting? So
Yes.
if we were to do that, that would give the club plenty of time to get in place their screening and their fence repairs and what have you, so that we would have to only make one trip and not have to go back again.
Well, I think, I'm sorry, can I just step in here for a second? I think as far as the site visit goes, it's important to have a site visit during the day to see our property, to see our club, and to see it while it's in use, because we'll be opening on Saturday. But then it would have to be a separate site visit in order to, if our proposal of shielding the platform tennis lights, our proposal was to shield one court and compare that to the other courts, just to see if that were to make a difference and to make those lights appear to be less bright. But that would have to be a separate visit. I know the neighbors have raised concern that that would be a difficult visit to have right now in the summer because there's no foliage, because there is, our buffer zone is really quite large right now with all the trees being in. I don't know if we can step away down the driveway to try to look at the light variance from that way, but it would have to be two different visits.
2 visits are no problem, for me anyway.
Yeah. We could,
And the question is, can we do that visit with the lights shielding now?
Yeah, we
I
could-
thought you don't have your shields
I
yet.
recommend that we do it, Beth, now, that we do the one court, and as soon as that is in place, we let Mr. Gordon and Mr. Cooper know that the shield is in place, and your next meeting is the last Wednesday in June, sir?
Yes.
So the Saturday before that would be June 26th. June 26th for a site visit. You do it daytime to see what's going on and see the foliage and the screening and the noise. We could have a recreation of the cardio class that day for 10 minutes while you're there, if we know what time you're coming. And then later that night, the shortest day of the year, the longest day of the year will have just passed a week ahead. If you wanted to come by, we'll have the light exhibit of the shielded and unshielded courts so that you can see that. And neither Mr. Gordon or I have to be there, I presume, right? I think you said that, Eric, right before we got cut off.
Up to the board, but that's up to the board whether they feel they need me there.
Yes, we don't, it won't be necessary for Eric.
Okay, then I won't be there either, so.
Okay.
I'm seeing a lot of comments about how our special use permit doesn't allow us to use amplified music. And I have to say that the music that we use on the cardio tennis courts, just after doing a decibel reading on my own, I can't see how that could possibly create a problem for the neighbors, especially, it's in the middle of the day, it's during the week. It's really not very loud at all. Our tennis pro he runs it off his telephone. So there's really he maxes out at a certain level, and it's always at a level where he can speak because he's also instructing players at the same time. I can't imagine that it's that high of an annoyance considering how far away our neighbors are.
That's why I want to, that's subjective, and Beth, and that's, the complaints are subjective, and that's why I want to have the music played, and we'll do decibel readings at that time from the 2 locations where it had been held and where we're moving it to voluntarily. So we'll do that at that site visit. We'll set up an agenda. You and I will, with the club manager and the pro, as to certain things that should take place to aid the board in a way we think would be helpful, and then they can ask us to do whatever else they want when they're there.
And Mr. Hollis, if you will get us a reading on the Kelvin.
Yes, I will. I will. I'll have that for you shortly.
Okay.
And I'll see if I have a spec as to what the light shields would do to prevent diffusion of the light emanating off the targeted area. There's another thing we could do instead of that, if the concern is the light emanating off of the court after it's shot down at the court. There's screening that can be wrapped around the paddle tennis courts, but we can't do both. But we could look at that as an alternative. But I want to look at the light shields first, because I have, from what I've been told, they seem to be effective. I'm not a lighting engineer.
And what are the hours of paddle tennis?
Well, it has to be over by 10 o'clock. So
10 o'clock, right. Okay.
I think Ms. Firstman had her hand up.
Yes, can you guys hear me?
We can.
Great, thank you. I just, the cardio, I was the president of CST, so I am biased. And I love the club, and I think the club has been very important for the community. And, as I talked about it before with Swim Across America and raising money to fight cancer, which, by the way, I guess we didn't get a permit to do, although I think it was a very helpful activity and important. But, at the club, we have swim meets, and at the swim meets, there are lots and lots of kids and families, et cetera, coming, and it can be quite raucous. We also use, megaphones at some of the meets and horns. It's a little loud, but it's a very joyful sporting event. But I am pretty confident that if you were to compare in terms of noise, the noise that emanates from a swim meet, which apparently is of no problem whatsoever, to the neighbors, to the, I think, pretty de minimis noise from a cardio tennis, situation, it would pale in comparison. So I just suggest that. I mean, I'm no longer on the board at CST, and as we're moving, as you know, from my zoning board application. But I think that I can't really even understand the complaint, although maybe there's some amplified music. It's just really not very noisy, and certainly nowhere near as noisy as the noise that happens at swim meets, which are held throughout the summer.
Well, on the
Again,
issues,
the cardiac tennis is 3 days a week for 2 months. For an hour a day, each of the 3 days.
Sabrina,
She's muted.
have we kept your interest?
You have kept my interest. I am listening. I still say that there's work to be done on the existing special use permits that have been issued to kind of synthesize them for the board, so you have a foundation for what you are looking at. I encourage to set a site walk, but I think before they come back before the board, we need some sort of application and fee in order to provide the board what it needs to really resolve these issues.
We'll pay for a dialogue, and we'll, depending on the outcome of the walk and our discussions with you and Mr. Gordon and myself, we'll figure out exactly what we need to do. I think you're.
But I say this to the board, you folks have to make a decision as to how you want to proceed. And I'd welcome Mr. Gordon to add his perspective on it as well.
I think the applicant is going to lead the discussion. If they want to come back, I think you're hearing, we need some kind of formal application. That we can take a site visit, but I don't believe the board can continue to act without a formal application. If the applicant doesn't want to do that and wants to pursue a different route, that's up to the applicant, or the potential applicant. We're going through this process, which is a little different than how this board typically approaches it. I think we've given the applicant a lot of courtesy through doing it this way. And, I think the applicant has to make a decision. I'm happy to respond or provide any additional guidance, but I think Ms. Charlie Hull is right. Before this board takes further action, we need some type of application. So we can't do it in an informal manner.
No,
through this board, so
what I'm saying is we'll make an application for whatever a conference is, and pay a fee for that, for whatever the review costs are by consultants to the town. We're not looking to avoid that. What I'm looking to avoid until it's determined that it's necessary and appropriate is file for something that I don't think we need to file for because we're not in violation. So that's why I think the site visit is so important, and we'll then take it from there.
Tom, did you issue a violation?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I did, Sabrina.
So there's a violation. So in accordance with
Yeah,
what the town reviewed.
Right, we put up, well, there's a violation that's been issued for the lights and for some screening issues. There was not a noise violation issued because there was not a complaint at the time the cardio tennis was taking place. This was the cardio tennis noise complaint is sort of in advance of that occurring this summer, I think, was one of the issues raised by the neighboring property owners, so we brought it up. So look, the applicant has two routes it can go. It can file to the only application that I believe is possible that I'm aware of is an application to amend the special permit. I don't think there's a informal conference fee permit application. The application will be to amend the special permit. If that's not the route that the applicant wants to take, they can choose there's a different route they can take, and we'll pursue that route. And if there's cardio tennis this summer and there are complaints about it, we'll deal with those as well. But we'd rather do it through, as Mr. Hollis and I think the neighbors have said, do it through being able to resolve it in a manner through this board where we can do it on a sort of, a basis that everybody's in agreement on, that's what we're looking to do. But I think, if you want direction, there's got to be an application. We can't do another informal meeting like this one. We've done that. We can have a site visit. I think the board's willing to do that, but the next step is to have some type of application.
I think to have a site, oops, I muted myself again. No, to have the site visit, and then we can have a discussion, you and I, Eric, and Sabrina, as to what the board feels. Because right now you're saying I need to amend the special permit, and you haven't had the site visit. You're relying on complaints to establish the basis for an amendment. That's a leap of faith that I think you shouldn't take.
We're relying on the building inspector's determination that the lights that were installed are a violation, are not in compliance with either the special permit or the town's regulations for lighting. So that's what the basis is for that. We can go out and look at them and see what's there. I think everybody has an understanding. I hope everybody has an understanding of where we are. If the board's comfortable going out to take a look at this, I have no problem with that. And, we can certainly get the board's input after that visit as to, how we can proceed. If the board wants,
and then we'll have a further discussion, you and I, as to where the client and I feel the next step ought to be. I think that, people watch too much, Law and Order Special Victims Units and the phrase lawyering up because they retain counsel to help them with something. There was a proposal made, and the conditions that were sought by the neighbors that were complaining were far too onerous. They were well beyond any of the complaints. And so that's why our client didn't feel that was appropriate way to go. They didn't lawyer up because they felt that an indictment was pending, to put it in historical present context, perhaps, for things on a more national level. So they didn't lawyer up because they were guilty of something. They lawyered up, quote unquote, because they were presented with something that wasn't acceptable, and they asked me to help them through the minefield of the complaints and the violation issued by Mr. DiPoli. And that's why I'm here. Not here because I have a guilty client. I'm here because I have a client that sought guidance.
Eric, what's going to happen with the outstanding violations? How are they dealt with?
I think it's dependent on what
they're adjourned through the Justice Court right now, Mr. Chairman. That the court wants to see what happens here before they put our feet to the fire with motion practice or a trial or any of that.
I see. Okay.
So they're hoping that we can find a middle ground. I mean, I've had other cases in other jurisdictions where I've had alleged zoning violations or actual zoning violations, building code violations, where a stipulation was entered in the court that then carried over and impacted the special permit. So there's more than one way to deal with that, but that's complicated too, because it's not a consistent cross-referencing. So what we do want to do, I agree with Sabrina, that clarity would be a good thing because there's not a steady stream from 59 to present. How do we deal with lighting? How have we dealt with screening? How have we dealt with noise? That's true. But just because there's not a straight line doesn't mean we're in violation. So we look forward to the visit on the 26th, and if you'll, we'll get you the information on the KV, on the lighting. We'll get you specs on the shields, and we look forward to the visit and speaking through council and Ms. Hull after that time as to where we'll be in returning to your board. And I appreciate all the courtesy and the extensive amount of time that you've given us tonight. It's been helpful, and I appreciate it.
Eric, Sabrina, anything else in this evening?
I have nothing further. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No.
Not tonight, Mr. Chair, Mr. Chairman, unless you have any questions or the board has any questions.
Any comments by any board members? Any questions by board members? No? Okay, I think we'll conclude this matter for this evening.
Can I just ask, would it be helpful to have one or two people from the community who are complainants to be there?
I'm not in favor of that, Mr. Dubs.
I understand you're not in favor of it, Mr. Hollis, and I'm not saying to have 80 people there. However, I'm talking about one or two.
Howard, you know what we might consider doing is I have seen, for instance, Brian Knapp has offered his property for us to visit so that we can see the implications of screening and lighting and so on and so forth. So I do think, I'm not saying no to your.
I'm just throwing it out there.
But I think we might be better served by going to one or two neighboring homes and seeing from their perspective what it is we wouldn't see from the club's perspective.
But they would have to.
And might I suggest that if there are neighbors who are watching this tonight, that they contact Jackie Trifoletti in my office to let them know that the board is welcome on their property so we can circulate their address and let them know when they're coming.
Can I just put a little historical context into this discussion before we close the evening with regard to site visits? Years ago, Ken remembers, we used to do regular site visits. They were like a given. We haven't done site visits, number one, because of the pandemic, but even prior to the pandemic, we haven't done too many site visits anymore. But when we did do site visits, the neighbors were never invited to accompany us because it was private property. And we left it up to the property owner themselves to offer the site to their neighbors if they thought it was appropriate and if they wanted to. But it never colored our decision as to what was going to happen, or what, it never affected our consideration as to what the requests were. So to have the neighbors with us, I should say, in an adversarial context, I don't think is a good idea. I think if the club thought they wanted to have some neighbors come, they want to have them come, fine, that's okay with me. If they don't want to have them come, it's okay with me also.
I've learned the lesson in nearly 50 years of doing this that none of those visits have ever gone smooth. So
I agree. I've been to a lot of them myself, and I agree.
Smooth is sometimes overrated, but okay.
Yeah, but it's our site visit. I won't be there. Mr. Gordon won't be there. There, certain things can be said or implied. That it's just better not. It's just a better practice, and that's our position. I appreciate everybody's thinking on it. So, is there anything else?
No.
What we'll do is we'll work on an agenda of not to tell you what to do, but things we'll have available. And if you'd like to have us expand on that, we'll do that for your visit.
Okay.
Maybe set a time for the night portion and time for the day portion at a time when Ms. D'Alessandro might think that you could see things that are going on. Maybe we'll have a 10-minute or a 15-minute cardio music, cardio tennis class on one court and then the further court at the same sound level by the pro. Something of that nature. You don't have to do it. I'm just saying we'll put it out there as something we'll make available if you would like it.
Sabrina's ready to join in, but the rest of the board.
I felt that from the beginning. I could feel. I saw her moving when I mentioned the music, and I.
Oh yeah, I'll be there. Notice
I know
I'm
Eric.
the only
Eric
one
is.
with internet. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Good
Eric,
night.
we're
I'm
ready to
sorry.
close the meeting.
Yeah, I think we can, we can close, time to close the meeting.
Okay, thank you, everybody, for your participation.
Thank
See you
you.
next time.
Bye-bye.
Good evening.
All right, everybody.
Good
Good
night.
night. See you all next time.
Thank you, Carrie.
Good night.
Good night.